Everybody wants to make cool posters until the artwork actually has to say something. So today we are creating a surreal political collage called Death by Diesel, a piece inspired by fuel prices, power, greed, and the feeling that ordinary people only get leftovers. We are taking a giant industrial oil tap, pouring black diesel into the head of a political figure, and building an entire dystopian world around using textures, symbolism, and mixed media elements inside Canva. We're not using any fancy software. We're learning how to build concept, composition, and controlled chaos. So let's build it. So ideally, this is my first step. After figuring out what sort of message I want to convey, I normally just do a doodle of the kind of imagery and the things that I would want to put in the poster. So in this case, I had already written a sentence to depict what I want to showcase. And the sentence is, the powerful consume national resources while ordinary people received scraps. And so we are focusing on the powerful, and the ordinary people are the ones who are consuming this media, so they do not have to be in the script. Then I start looking at different things I can collect. Especially when I'm using Canva, I like to collect a lot of elements that I can use in my media collage, because ideally to create a poster, you require a lot of elements put together. So in this case, I was looking at from whatever I'm collecting, what sort of emotions, textures, shapes, atmosphere, and symbolic objects I'm going to use to tie everything together. And so I started searching for things like oil spills, industrial smoke, rust textures to depict decay, African political photography because we need somebody's head. And over here, this is an example of an oil spill, and I just need the oil pouring so that it can come out of the tap. So what I'm doing is I'm just clearing all these unwanted bits from it. And the thing that I like about Canva, you can always go back and clean how the edges are going to be. Right now I'm using the magic eraser tool, and it's just always cool to get the elements. So after that, I always look at how I'm building the whole scene. So in this case, I don't normally start with a background. I don't know what other trained graphic designers start with, but for me, I like starting with all the elements that are gonna come in the foreground, what the focal point is gonna be. I always look at where I want the eye to hit first. And so for me, it's primarily this tab that is not, you're not getting water out of it the way you would naturally get water. It's now replaced with some sort of fuel. It could be diesel, it could be petrol, it doesn't matter, but it ties into the whole narrative around it. And in this case, so I initially, this is why mood boarding is important and not just fixating on one particular thing. So with the focal point being the politician's head, I couldn't find a politician sort of looking person with a lot of emotion. Ideally, I wanted to use this random dude wearing this suit, but he wasn't showcasing a lot of emotion, and emotion is very important. So that's why I settled for this stock image of this young guy. And the thing is, I needed to erase his eyes because, like, the story that I'm telling around his eyes missing is when you're consumed with so much, when you're consumed with so much greed, you're not able to see anything other than that thing that has consumed your greed. So, like, for example, you're consumed by the love of this particular resource. So that's all that you see. So why do you need eyes? You don't need eyes. Again, I utilized the magic tool to just remove that. And the trick is to be able to not erase transparent, but erase and have the skin texture still on, is you rub on, you rub aggressively on the photo itself using the magic eraser tool. And therefore what happens is you don't ideally erase to transparent, but you are able to still have the skin texture. So right now what I'm doing is still on step 1, building the focal points. So already I have selected 3 elements, and I've already selected 3 elements and I'm adding the 4th one. So ideally the 4th one is to now put the black liquid. This could even be water, it doesn't matter, but it's there to showcase a story. So right now I'm figuring out how to now place the black liquid on the head, or rather on the eyes of this figure, still building on the focal points. And so my grand idea was to get like a custom photo frame and sort of trace the head, sort of trace that bit that we had ideally erased it off. But I decided to settle on this sort of organic shape because I figured out it will look like the way you would wear glasses. So something like that. I figured like maybe it will be able to like bring those 2 elements together. And so I used that and that photo frame to depict that and put that there. So at this point, I'm just trying to make sure that I can have the elements that I had gotten for foreground, because I normally start with a foreground. Right now what I'm doing is effectively trying to tighten it. At this point, I have already added all the other elements that I needed, that I had selected. So the huge oil tank, and the head is seated at the top of the huge oil tank. I also used the same photo frame to include black liquid that showcase oil being spilled, and put it on top of there to sort of tie everything together. And so the thing that takes the most time, especially when designing such a poster, even though it's elements that you're putting together to convey a story, is now making them work conclusively together. Over here I'm back at the magic eraser. I was trying to clean the head a little bit because it had too much rough cut at the bottom of the neck. so it can have that, yeah, at least soften the head a little bit. And here on the foreground, I am primarily focusing again on the giant head and oil pouring directly into the eyes, because they cannot see anything more than whatever they're obsessed with. So the head, yeah, at this point I was thinking if so the narrative was the oil to come from the top, goes through the eyes, and then comes out from the mouth. But I'm pretty sure I didn't get to keep it. Again, this just shows like process of design. You add stuff, remove stuff, play with it until it feels right. But now looking back at it, like that ain't bad. Having the liquid come out of, the liquid coming out of the mouth. So ideally, again, back to the magic eraser tool, in my head I was thinking maybe the reason why the oil is not looking fluid enough is because I hadn't cleaned it up well initially. So I went back to try and make it low-key look like a tongue. But now it's a black tongue that has been infected by the love of oil. And so, and I think the thing that I'm learning about concept design and just putting things together and wearing sort of a hat of like a director, like a creative whatever, creative, what do they call it? Creative something, is exaggeration and pulling the lever to the max kind of helps dramatize a lot of things. So I fast forward a little bit. At this point, I had already added some of the items in the foreground in the background. And I was doing the last touches of, adding some rusts to showcase decay. I think the video that is missing was me ideally killing all the color that was in the top, was on the head, and all that to sort of create a uniformity. At this point, I'm trying as much as I can to make the image a little bit tighter. Trying to make the image a little bit tighter. And so to create that cohesion, I took a block of color and just put it on top. And so it can look like you're seeing one thing created within one composition. So the trick of pulling together the image so that they can have that cohesion is through color, and also through making sure that they sort of look like they were shot in the same color composition. And then for text, I just wanted the poster to have the title of whatever it is it's communicating over there. And the title is That by Diesel. So the type of font that I used was very much grunge. And this was so easy for me to pull it off because I like cold photos. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, you look at a piece of image and it looks cold. It's like there's no life into it, especially when you are discussing very themes related to such as this. And That's why one of the elements was even like propaganda posters, because it really ties down and showcases the lack of emotion that you have to be this great. And so in the middle of that by Diesel, I just used a tiny little to put it together. And so let me present to you the final posters, and you can comment which one you liked, gravitate towards, and all that. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. And by the time I was recording this video, it was on a Monday morning, 18th of May.